This interview is a part of the Oklahoma Historical Society's oral history program, Living Legends Collection. This interview was originally conducted on April the 2nd, 1969. The interview was conducted by an unidentified man on this tape, but according to the paperwork in this collection, he is identified as Mac McGalliard. The interviewee is Mr. Clint Dove, that's capital Dove, of Ardmore, Oklahoma. This material was re-recorded on November the 7th, 1986 for inclusion in the permanent collections of the Oral History Program by Judith Michener.
This is an interview with Clint Dove, an Ardmore old-timer, at his home at 501 East Street Northwest in Ardmore on April 2nd, 1969. Clint, I guess we just, start at the beginning. When did you come to Ardmore?
In 1894, Ardmore's birthday.
July 28th?
July the 28th, we came in to town and camped just across the little ravine from the old 700 ranch house the night before the picnic started the next day.
Well, it's July 27th.
27th, really.
And, what kind of a celebration did they have in 1894?
Oh, it was a big one. They had a great big barbecue that had all that. Where the Whitman Park is now, there's a great long circular pit there and just full of all kinds of barbecue and wagons and covered wagons. People just camped all over that area and had all the barbecue in the world they wanted.
There's a lot of people there. Huh?
Oh, I thought more people than I'd ever seen together in my life seemed to me. And they come and carried it off in buckets, and it didn't mean what to come with. They just give it to them, that and so much bread and pickles, and go on down to him and get your coffee.
And go out in the park sometime.
Somebody can sit down and eat it.
Well, they have any other activities?
Oh, yes, they had speeches by some of the prominent citizens at that time.
Well, they have any other activities?
Oh, yes, they had speeches by some of the prominent citizens at that time, and square dancing, and a lot of all lemonade you can drink for a nickel.
Did the lemonade have ice in it?
A nice big container with half of 100 pounds of ice just thrown into it, and tin cups tied around the corner, and everybody just drank out of the very sanitary. Everybody drank out of the same tin cups.
You just paid your nickel?
Paid your nickel and just get yourself full as you can drink. I don't think there's much lemon in it. Lots of lemon's floating, but there's mostly made from some kind of acid, you know.
Oh, citric acid.
Citric acid, yeah.
Oh, where did you all come from, Ardmore? Where were you born?
Well, I was born in Tennessee.
Did you come from there out here?
No, we drifted around through Texas and on into West Texas, out Big Springs and Colorado City in that area, and from that area here.
When were you born, Clint?
December the 12th, 1880.
1880. How old are you now? So I won't have to figure it out.
Well, I'm in my 80. I was 88 the 12th of December of last year. I'm my 89th year.
Man, I hope I can see that. And you seem to be in pretty good health.
Yeah, I've been getting along fine, I think, for longer than that age, doing fine.
I believe you recently joined the Civic Club for the first time in your life, didn't you?
Yeah, and the youngest bunch of fellows in town, the optimists.
When did you join them?
Oh, I guess 6 months ago or something like that.
Well, I seen you down at the club meetings and looked like you were thoroughly enjoying it.
Oh, yeah.
And they're enjoying you.
I get a lot of kick out of it. Yeah.
Well, Clint, I guess first we might do a little rundown on your family. Where did you settle when you came to Ardmore? Did you live in town?
Oh, we lived in town a while over in the southeast part, just west of the Whittington Park there. And then later on in the same year, I'd say, my father acquired a farm and lease from an Indian out here east, a mile and a half or 2 miles east of town. We lived there for several years.
Well, let's see, you were about 14 years old when you moved to Ardmore.
That's right.
What did Ardmore look like in those days?
Well, it was a pretty nice little town. It looked like a lot of these country towns you see. They'd have a porch out in front. You walk over front, and then there's a muddy spot till you come. The next fellow had a front porch on his store.
The buildings weren't all continuous.
No, they wasn't that time. Finally did most of them get hooked up in there. The center of town at that time was, well, I guess about Caddo. The banks were right on the corner, northeast corner of Caddo Street, or A Street Northeast, we call it now. There's 2 banks.
At that time, there
were First National and City National.
Do you remember when they paved the first streets?
Yes, I do, but I don't know what dates it was. I don't really remember. We had a lot of, Main Street was, when they cut open the watermelon, eat the watermelon, throw it out on the main drag, and the hogs run out, and they'd clean them up, and fix everything up so we could go along.
Wasn't very sanitary?
No. Didn't. Oh, we didn't have any water for a number of years, only what they had in wells.
Yeah, I believe that Mayor Dick, wasn't it, in about 1902 or 3 that got the first water system started?
I guess that was. He built in what was the city lake out here at that time, and kept on till he got the water all in and started improving along those lines. And he had a battle of it too, getting it done.
They weren't,
people
weren't real willing.
No, they wasn't looking for a town like that.
Where did you go to school, Clint?
Well, we didn't have any schools here at that time, only just pay schools. A fellow would come on and teach for a while, and then he'd go on maybe 2 or 3 months. And I went to school some, and my brother and sister did, over what was when we lived on the farm. They went to school over to old, what we called the Rudisville Business College. It was located where the Douglas High School is now. And we were not taking business course, of course. We was in what they called a literary department. That was like high school, or not to that place again. I remember John Easley was one of the teachers there.
Well, that was about 1895, 96.
Yeah, he moved up there from down across Spanish Ford to someplace down there. He's newly wedded.
Yeah, I believe he taught over about 1896, then he went to work for Colonel Sidney Sutton at the Ardmore in 1897.
That's right. That's about right, I guess. And then our next, my mother told my father one day, said, we're going to have to get these children away from out here. They're not getting any schooling, and I don't know what we'll do in town, but they've got school part of the time, and this, the old Hargrove College was started somewhere along in there. I don't know what years it was, but see, I went to school, we all went to school there at old Hargrove College.
That was up here at the
right at the end of D Street. They've got a little marker up there, you notice, in that Selvage Park, where it occupied a full block there. And they had a boarding school, and all they had a lot of out-of-town students there that roomed there and stayed there all the time.
What was your parents' names, Clint?
William Dove was my father's name, and Susan was my mother's name.
Well, how many children were there in the family?
3. I was oldest, and then my brother Eric was next, and my sister Lizzie was next.
Brother Eric?
E-R-I-C.
Are they still living, your brother?
No, they're both passed away. My sister married a Prinsley, Cortez Prinsley, and they had one child, Tommy Prinsley, which a lot of people here knew Tommy real well. He passed away here 10 or 11 years ago.
Was he the one that never did marry?
He didn't marry. My brother never married. I'm the only one married, and I married Mr. Palmer's daughter, his oldest daughter.
Palmer?
P-A-L-M-E-R, Palmer.
What was his first name?
A.H.
A.H. Palmer.
And he was associated with the City National Bank from the time he come up here for a number of years. And
what was your wife's given name?
Bessie.
Bessie Palmer.
Bessie Palmer. She was, everybody knew her around as Bessie Palmer Dove. After married, everybody called her Miss Bessie and Bessie Palmer Dove.
When did you marry?
December the 18th, 1909.
How many children did you have?
One girl, Ruth, and she passed away when she was 8 years old. Had a mastoid operation, and she didn't got through with it, but didn't live but a few days.
Well, what was your first job, Clint? What did you work at?
Oh, I worked first around here I worked for Jas McCarran a while in the grocery store, and worked some of the others up in the grocery store there.
McCarran, how do you spell it?
M-C-C-A-R-R-E-N. His family, some of them still here, and Jerry's, if you remember Jerry, well,
she was county clerk.
She was county clerk, and Byrne, that worked for Calvert so long down here, was part of his family. Yeah. Then the next job I had that lasted any length of time was, while I was working for him, I took examination for clerk care examination, went to work in the post office.
Well, when was that?
In 1905.
Where was the post office located?
Post office was on North Washington at that time. Well, about where Fedler's it was in the building there where Fedler's drugstore was so long. That was where it was located at that time.
How long did you work for them?
Well, 14 years in the post office. I worked in the post office until they built the new federal building there, and went on over there and worked for 2 or 3 years. And from there, I quit there and went to work for Friends Brothers Lumber Company.
Went into the lumber business.
Went into the lumber business, and that was 1919.
Just after the First World War?
Yeah, I went to work first day of January there in 1919. So, and continued with them until 1935, I guess. Anyway, about 16 years that I worked for Friends Brothers.
What did you do when you were working for the lumberyard?
Oh, I done everything. I went in there with the idea that I was going to learn the business, and I'd already I had taken a business course and understood the bookkeeping and all of that from Drone's Business College, so I could work on the books, and I'd rather work around the yard, and so I was wanting general information about it all. If I was going to work, I wanted to know something about it.
So when did you go to Drone's Business College?
In 19 and 22 or 20. That won't work.
That was after you went to work for the lumberyard.
No, I went to work there just after I before I quit the post office quite a while. I can't think of 19 and...
Oh, so you quit the post office in 1919,
the
end of 1919.
19 and... But you see, I'd already had my business course prior to that, don't you see?
Well, how'd you get to, was it Drone's Business
The
College?
Drone's Business College at Fort Worth.
Fort Worth?
Yeah.
How did you manage that? Just go down there?
Just go down there, and I'd made enough money up here. Well, let's break down and tell this. As a school teacher, I taught school software 1 year.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. The old Press Wallace begged me to go up there and join him 1 year up there, and I drove the sum of $35 a month. And it was in the public school. They was, and they didn't have the money after we'd had school 1 month. They didn't have money enough to pay us to give us a check, and we had to discount it 10% to get the money over at the bank. And I, of course, had to pay my board and get along out of all of that. But after we was through with that, well, old Fester decided, well, he'd start a pay school and let them all pay so much a month. And he propositioned me he'd go 60 and me 40 on the expenses, and after the first month of it, he said, I believe I'll just rather go 50-50 with you on that. And we just collect and get along with it, and it proved out so well, we had to increase it, had to hire another teacher.
How much did the students pay?
I don't remember, it was $2 and something a month, or $3, not more than that. And I managed to save up about, during that time, it was proved very profitable to us, you know, and I saved out about $700 or $800.
Oh.
And it was just following that I went down to Fort Worth, and I had my own money to spend to go through the school down there and complete their course. And
well, now, when was that?
that was, I was up there, you see, in 19, and those dates bother me some, but then...
Before you married or after?
Oh, yes, long before I married. And
well, let's say you went to work for the post office in 1905.
yeah, and it was, you see, I'd been down there and taken their course down there and worked here some in the stores before I went to work in post office, you see.
I see.
I never did use my bookkeeping that part until I got to the lumberyard, though, because in working for the government, the forms were all had to fill out, and there wasn't any bookkeeping there.
What kind of pay did you get working for the post office?
I went to work $50 a month and worked 12 hours a day, 7 days in the week.
Oh.
All the carriers in there at that time, they had an 8-hour deal on theirs. I don't know why or that part of it, but the clerks all, they worked 12 hours, and I got down there and I thought for a while this would be a good place to quit. After I'd been there, I thought when they closed the windows, everybody went home.
But they didn't.
Everybody went to work.
Where did you live when you married? I mean, after you married?
Oh, on this corner.
Right here where you are now?
Here, moved here after married, and this house behind us was on this corner here because we worked it over some, built a room to it, and fixed it up to suit the madam, and yeah, whether it suited her or not, that's all we had to go with anyway. And later on, while we moved it back and built a home where we are here.
Well, have you lived here continuously?
Lived here continuously since then.
Since 1909?
Since 1909.
You know, that's 60 years, Clint.
You know, and another interesting thing in there, I voted in Precinct 1 every vote I've ever cast in my life.
You've been voting ever since you were old enough to vote?
Ever since they would let me vote. First precinct started right in the corner. You voted right back with where the steel drug is on Main Street. To have 4 voting places, 1 on each corner. And then number 1 just moved on up Main, and then it moved on out, and now they're voting at the Franklin School up here, and I voted. I've just been in the area where I've been in the same precinct all my life. All my voting life, anyway.
Yeah? How many times you reckon you've missed voting?
Not very many. I figured that as a privilege to vote, and I always took advantage of it.
Did you know Buck Garrett?
Yes, I did.
What kind of a looking fellow was he?
Why, he's a nice-looking fellow and very likable, a man that you would really, well, just real friendly, nice, and high.
I noticed in looking at the Ardmore files that he was elected police chief in 1905 and served until 1910 when he ran for county sheriff the first time he was elected.
Yeah, I remember when he had all those things. Of course, when I first knew him, he's United States Marshal, you know, in Indian Territory.
Before he got to be
before we had statehood, and in the early days, that's all we had here to keep us walking the straight and narrow. Was a few United States Marshals around. At that time, we had Booker and Buck Garrett and Uncle Jim Chancellor. And I don't know who all this, several others. You know, when I first remember court, where they'd carry them from here to Paris, you know, whatever they'd pick up and violate the law, took them over to Paris, Texas. That's where they held the court over there. Later on, they moved it in here. And I understand prior to our coming here, they used to take them over Fort Smith, you know. You had to go a long way to get tried then for anything you done out of the way.
But they took them over there.
They had them over there, though. Didn't many of them run off either.
You remember when oil was discovered at the Hilton Field in 1913?
Yes, I do. We had a lot of people coming to this area then, and that thing was boomed up fast out there.
Everybody kind of excited around.
Oh, yes, you could, up the hotel, you know, you couldn't stir them in there trying to sell leases, and everybody carrying a lease in his pocket, and I'll let you have this, and I'll let you have that, and it'd be interesting just to go up to the hotel and mill around there with them.
What hotel was that?
Well, that was that time it was the Ardmore Hotel, you know, the one there. Lincoln
For Lincoln Center?
Yeah, Lincoln
I didn't
Center.
think it was built quite that early.
Well, that was
It was the Randall Hotel.
Yeah, well, the Randall was
On the north
maybe
side
it
of
was the
Main
Randall
Street.
I'm thinking about.
Must have been. It was
Must
on
have been,
the
but
north side of Main Street.
Yeah, that's because I did work for McCarran in the grocery store, and he had one right under the Randall Hotel. One,
Oh, he did?
Yeah, one
corner?
side there, and I worked there for him a while, and I remember this, but he didn't have a very big lobby. Wasn't a very big building.
Well, now, sometime long ago, I don't know when it was built, I've got a picture of the old Randall Hotel. It was one time the Gilmer Hotel.
Yeah, Gilmer.
And it was a 3-story.
Yeah, I think that's the way it was.
Great big thing.
Yeah. And you know, the Whittington Hotel was still, it was going then. Old Cap Whittington built that one down on the corner that they recently torn down, you know.
Yeah, Whittington was originally in the grocery business.
Yeah, in the grocery business right on that corner. We first came here as a grocery store in there.
And then he built a hotel.
Later on. You know, of course the fire originated down on Caddo Street.
1895.
And they had a fire, and it burned back south and across the way and burned up the hotel and just cleaned both sides of Main Street up as far as, well, burned everything on up till they got to the corner where, well, Court Street, which is now Washington.
Oh, is that what they call Court Street?
Court Street then. And later on, when they incorporated the town, that was the center of town, and they got A Street northwest and A Street northeast, southeast, and southwest. You know, all the streets were A, B, C, D, E, F, and we still carry that out. You know, and the avenues was all they started down there and come on up first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And it was pretty orderly till they went to putting additions on and slanting them into that, and that's where they mixed up a little, don't you see, on the numbering and stuff then. A little hard to follow them.
Do you have any idea how our Main and Broadway got in such a mess? They're just like an X.
Yeah, and I hardly know how that happened. It was just, I guess, I know they went to calling them that. You see, there's some other streets developed in there. Main Street, you see, went straight on, and Broadway just crossed in there out there and made a V-shaped outfit. Our mayor lived in that V-shaped.
He did?
Yeah, Bob Dick lived out there, and his home was right from that point to Broadway on the south side of it, Main on the north side of him. That was his home.
On the far side of where they crossed.
Yeah, down the west end of it, you know. I don't know how far down, but along there.
Do you remember when there was a cemetery out here southwest?
Yeah, up there about where, well, it was where Thurman built his place, and Madden lived on the corner in there. That was Madden.
Yeah, Madden lived on the corner of McLeish and K Street.
Yeah, that's right. And then later on, well, I don't know. It was on the hill along in there. I don't know how much area it covered, but they were still using it when we came here. And used it for quite a little while.
That was the original Ardmore Cemetery.
Yes, that's right.
I guess they dug up all those graves and moved them out to Rose Hill.
That was supposed to get all of them there and move them out to Rose Hill.
Well, now you say supposed, you reckon they didn't?
I don't know whether they did or not, I doubt it. That's the news I know they didn't, because later on I heard of some where they hit them there, put some foundations in, things like that.
Well, on just about all these old cemeteries, there were lost graves.
There was lost ones, there is in Rose Hill now. You don't know whose are. There's no markers there, and you don't know about them today. See, it was not handled in by the city. It was handled by individuals, and I don't know, they'd have a cemetery committee or something. They'd be changing all the time, and I think the undertakers that time more or less handled it themselves and just run it to suit themselves, I guess. I don't know how.
You remember when the O'Brien Robertson built the streetcar line?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
You rode him, I guess.
You know, when he first started the streetcar line, he run it down started at the depot, Santa Fe Tracks. He come on up Main Street till it got to C Street and then turned north toward the Presbyterian Church right there and went on north. It didn't go but about a block there. It was headed for the northwest. So this is something that's happened that's real interesting and funny. Cad Bennett was sitting out in front of, I was working the store, you know, standing around like a big old boy was out in front of the store. And he was talking to some fellow there, and the fellow said, where does your streetcar? That's happened that's real interesting and funny. Cad Bennett was sitting out in front of, I was working the store, you know, standing around like a big old boy was out in front of the store. And he was talking to some fellow there, and the fellow said, where does your streetcars go to? And Thad said, I know, Cad it was, Cad Bennett, Caswell Bennett. He says, he was Lee Cruce's nephew. Oh, he says, I don't know. I never did go out the end of it. I just know it turned and starts north up here. He said, they seemed to have quite a lot of cars. He said, back and forth. He said, I never did. He said, I never did count them or anything. And they just had one. It'd run down there and back, down there and back. He sure dodged fish right along with that fellow.
He hadn't counted them.
Good, I hadn't counted them. They had missed number one on it that paid attention to. That's all there wasn't had. They finally run on out to Lorena Park.
Well,
Lorena Park's about under where Roy Johnson and Ed Galt built their homes, you know, out close to the country club there.
yeah, on that ridge.
On that ridge. And
Who put in Lorena Park?
Roy Johnson. That was named for Lee Cruce's daughter was Lorena.
Lorena.
Yeah, and they named that park out there for her. I don't know. That land was owned there and still is by, I guess, by Johnson's.
What did they have out there at the park?
Oh, it wasn't anything much. They had a little lake there, and you'd all go out there on the streetcar, and they'd have speakings out there, and everybody wanted to ride the streetcar, and they had several streetcars running. Then
They had a little lake out there.
Little lake,
Did
you
they
know.
swim in it?
Well, I think they go in the lake there, and it is just a place where they're going to have something outdoors out there tonight, and they'd load up the streetcars, and I'd give the streetcars some business, you know, and everybody'd ride out, and they wanted to ride them anyway. And
How much did it cost to ride the streetcar?
I don't think it cost but a dime to go out there, all the way out.
Well, that's about, what, 2 or 3 miles?
Oh, yeah, it must be.
Good 2 miles.
Good 2 miles, possibly 3. And
well, this old man Robinson, I believe his name is spelled Robison.
yeah, Frank Joe F. Robinson.
Joe F.
Yeah.
Well, he had an opera house down there.
Yeah, it was where he built that one there where A&P grocery store was, or right across the street on the corner of C Street in Maine. That building, the Von Weiss building, you called it a long time, you know, and it's on now by Pres McGee.
Did you ever go to that opera house?
Yeah, I've been there. That's where you'd go to see all the shows come through.
What kind of shows they have?
Oh, they had these traveling shows. They'd come in here sometimes to have some Shakespearean plays, and that was, and then the first opera house was down under where Tom Eccles is, on that corner there. That was the old Klotsky Opera House.
Kloski?
Yeah, that was it. On that corner there.
What happened there?
I don't know whether it went up in the fire or not. Possibly did, and then old Jeff Robinson built that up there and operated it for a number of years till, I don't know, I guess picture shows things just got the business where they didn't have any anyway.
Did Robinson always operate that streetcar line, or did he sell it out to somebody else?
I believe it finally, well, I know it did, fell in some other hands. This fellow Putnam, I think that is his name, and associates came down and they tried to put an addition out under. Well, it would be now in there, well, in Broad Lawn and that, not as far east as it goes right alongside of east of what would be 77 all along in there, and they platted it all out and run that streetcar through it there with the idea of developing that all in there, but I don't know what happened to it. It finally blowed up and got in the hands of the receiver. I know when Mr. Byrne was postmaster, they appointed him receiver for it, and he'd move the big desk, you know, that they had and all the high-powered stuff. He moved it down in the post office. This is another funny thing. So post office seemed like to have their own furniture and everything be there for stuff, you know. So we inquired into that and found out that big desk sitting over there was his, and he was receiver for the traction company. So Inspector told him, "You have to move it out, Mr. Byrne. We can't run two businesses here in the post office. This is the post office." He didn't like it much. He moved it out, moved it down.
How do you spell his name? B-Y-R-N-E?
Yeah, Byrne. He was president of Chickasaw Lumber Company at that time. And
what was his first name?
Cassius.
C.L.
C.L. Byrne. C.L. Byrne. B-Y-R-N-E. Sometimes men would come up the window. Mr. Sandlin and I had the two front windows there, the money order, postal savings, and stamps. And his office was right next to there. We could go into his and into ours right easy. You know how people do. They come up and says, "What's the postmaster's name?" And we tell him, "Burns." And he'd open the door and says, "Mr. Burns," and stick out his hand my name. He started saying my name's B-Y-R-N-E, Byrne, sir, Byrne. We done ruined that man as far as he getting along with the son. We got a lot of kick out of it.
I believe you were a city commissioner sometime along with your class.
Well, yeah, I was city commissioner. I was appointed first to fill out Judge Hefner's unexpired term. He was mayor, I believe, at the time, and he was elected judge of the Supreme Court of the state of Oklahoma.
Oh.
And they appointed me, the board did, to fill out his unexpired term, and that is in 25 and 26. And then my time was out there where I run for the office in there, and 27, 28, 29, 30. See, I was in there 4 or 6 years. And I run the next time, and Charlie Adams was, C.F. Adams run against me, and Charlie beat me 35 votes. And so he went in as they elected him, I believe, mayor, but he didn't serve a little while. They got rid of the city manager, which was H.H. Johnston. He went back forward to the manager's job, held that for 4 years.
C.F. Adams did?
C.F. Adams did. And then they beat him for office, and then they rounded me up and wanted me to go into city manager, which I did.
When was that?
I served there in the year 35 and 36. And during that time that I was in there, we'd never had any filtering plants, disposal plants, or anything like that. So that was the hard time area, and we held an election, voted I don't know how much, $40,000, $50,000, and then they'd granted us so much money. So that was during the time that I was city manager there, so we got busy on that setup and built a filtration plant over on the east side, which they're about to do away with now.
That sewage plant?
The sewage plant. Mm-hmm. And then they built the other one out here north of the armory there.
Yeah.
They built that during that year and there. And then same time we built the filtration plant out here. They never had a filtration plant.
You mean up to that time they hadn't treated the city water?
Only with
chemicals, chlorine?
Chlorine, that was all. Had a little dropper out there, so much to the 1,000 gallons, and that's...
So you just chlorinated it?
Just chlorinated it and come on down through the mains. And that, a fellow asked me one day here not long ago, said, why didn't you build something that they wouldn't have to be doing over again? I said, we was doing well with the town that size to get what we did get. And I said, and during that time in there, we got the plans all out for the present city hall, just like it is there now. And I went out about that time, and I think Burgess Short followed me in there, and it was all ready to let the contract plans all drawn and everything. And so Virgil come in and stayed a couple of years then, following me there.
Clint, I believe you mentioned to me one time that when you were on the city commission back in the 1920s was when you built the bandstand down there in Central Park.
Every year, John Easley had he promoted and helped the kind of a community center down there. They'd sing and get everything all once a week. You'd have something down there, and we'd haul the lumber from the lumber yards, and we'd all go in together and furnish the lumber to build a stand they'd have down there, just as all the 4 lumber yards here then would do that. And John Ramrod at that part. And then they got talking about somebody wanted to build something in Central Park down that would be lasting. And I'll admit that I've done a lot of studying about what to build in there. The first one was that Fred Tucker wanted to build Arthur aquaponic, I believe they called them then. We just, nothing in the world but just a loudspeaker, you know.
Bandshell.
There, that was all, and he wanted to locate it someplace over there where the people congregate down there. And the first thing he propositioned me while I was on the board, they come down there, and Fred says we could make an amphitheater out of that thing and seat it all and put that over on that side, and then the war started. They didn't want their backed up to them over there, so then the next thing was one man come along, wanted to put it up in the belfry, up in the tower of the Episcopal Church.
Was that built then?
Yeah, it was up there then, out of the same stone. If you notice it, it was already done. They all that more war come on there. The preacher was willing to it, I think, but the congregation wasn't. So then we got into the next thing, and I was studying all the time, and I guess the rest of the board was too. But I got me an outfit, and we, you know, it in a small way. We could build something that looked, you know, I thought we were good for the time that we had there and what money we had. We didn't have too much money. I think it cost something less than $5,000. And
where you get that? Did you have to go to?
Well, no, it come out of some of the funds that we had. Some we had transfer some funds, and they enjoined us from doing that. But we
in some of the citizens.
Yeah, and we beat them out on that and went out and built it because we used the same stone like is using on the church over and have used to complete it. And in the deal, I was to, you remember there's some list of all the soldiers there that was lost in this county in the First World War there. That was part of the reason for having it done there. And then they used to have every week, 3 or 4 times during the week, they'd have something out there, you know, and they'd give a stage act and have them do all kinds of acting, meetings, and this, that, and the other out there.
Did they have more community activities then than they do now?
Well,
together?
I don't know. I think we have as many now, but I don't know. They tried to have them all the time and done a pretty good job of it, I think. Later on, you got the convention hall, you know, and that.
Remember about when the first convention hall was built up there, where it is now on the corner of, let's see, Broadway and C Street?
No, I don't know.
This is not the original building.
No. The old building faced the north. There, instead of facing like this, and it faced the north. And they voted bonds for that. And I don't know what, but it was during the time it may have been built before. Yeah, it was built before we had the managerial form of government, because I was on old Judge Freeman appointed me on the convention hall board. He went in as mayor, and the board run that thing. And
what was Freeman's first name or initials?
WF, I believe it was. He was district judge here for quite a while, and he run for the mayor and got elected mayor.
Well, then the mayor run the town.
The mayor then was the big shot, you know. So he appointed me on the board, and had a board of 5 members. And I went up to the meeting, and I hadn't been there long until they elected me secretary, and I didn't have enough gumption to only to go on and take it. And I found out the secretary, it was all his. The rest of them forgot about it right away. And John Easley had been handling this stuff ahead of me, and so there was somebody all the time wanting to do it for this, that, and the other, and they'd meet me on the street, and here, there, and there. I went up to the office to see John, and I said, "How'd you handle that thing?" "Oh," he said, "I forgot. Here's the book here in my pocket, Clint. I had one of these He said, I just had one with dates on it down in the office. I had a big calendar with it.
Now we've got the tape turned over, Clint. Let's back up there to where you went to John Easley to ask him how he handled this convention hall. You're talking about handling the booking of the
Yeah, the booking of the events that had come there. And John said, oh, I just write them down in this little space here in this book, and if you'd come along and want it, why, look, said, well, that's over it. Could you use it the next day? And they'd have to conform to John's book or put the others out or do something. And we reserved the right at all times to not let the convention all out in case we needed it for any public gathering of any kind. We could shut them off. That was part of our contract with whoever went in, that you didn't just say that something come up in the city, we needed to use that to call all the citizens together. Well, that killed after that night. They didn't have it in place. That's the way we handled it.
How much did that building cost originally?
I don't know what it cost. But when I found out that the city wasn't getting anything out of it, not a dime, John was just letting anybody have it, wanted it, and
not charging
them anything. It was civic business, John said. The people were entitled to have it, and our board met, and we figured, well, what in the world? And they put it on to me to contact other towns, had auditoriums, and they all charged. So we set up a list of charges, not exorbitant, pay for our lights and keeping it up, and we had to pay a man there to sweep it out, and all that business paid him. We made it got it on a basis where it carried itself, to say the least of it.
Was that a brick building?
Yes, it was a brick building, very nice looking building.
2 stories?
No, it was a story. Well, it's practically like a 2-story, but it had the lower floor, and then over the side they had a balcony, I'll say, in it, And for instance, like Will Rogers came here putting on something, and they charged for it. And that thing was just running over, and that went for some public something, I don't know what, maybe the Red Cross, no telling what, some of those.
Will Rogers did come here.
Yeah, I never will forget that. And I said to my wife, I said, you going down to hear Will Rogers? Said, no, I don't care anything. I said, I listened to him the other night. And I said, you'll be sorry if you don't go. She said, well, I'll go. And he entertained them there for 2 solid hours, just one thing after another. And everybody enjoyed it. When he
wisecracks?
Just wisecracks, when he had them, plenty of them, just continually. And he picked out somebody posted him about a lot of the leading citizens and all, and he'd let them have one, and that'd just tear the audience off. They just hoot and yell. And I know he got off something on Dr. Hardy, they'd always pick on him. He didn't bother him,
Well, you remember the excitement when Jake Hammond was killed?
Yeah, yes. I was working post office that time.
No, you couldn't have been. It was 1920 that he was killed. You went to work for the lumberyard in 1919.
Yeah.
You was working for...
Well, I had just lately gone out of the post office, and I guess that's right, because Well, I know they had a box right up next to where we worked there, and this girl that worked for Jake, she'd come down there and get the mail out of the box every day. And it just right at our window there. And very seldom would ever see him down there.
Was she a pretty good-looking gal?
Oh, she was a good-looking girl. Yes, she was. So Jake and his wife was supposed to have been separated long about that time, but Jake was about to be elected national committeeman of the Republican Party of the United States. So Jake and his wife got back together, and that's when the yow started. That's the story back there. That's about all I know about that story, but you see, didn't she go down into Mexico or someplace?
Yeah, I believe she did, according to the Ardmore file.
Buck went down there and brought her back here, and they got the thing straightened out somewhere. She never did go to penitentiary or anything.
They had a trial, didn't
they? They had a trial, but I don't think it ever amounted to anything.
Ted, do you remember the old Stockade Jail up on West Main?
Yeah, you know, well, they had more than one, but the one you could remember the best was the one that, well, Packman is that corner over there just across from the Tivoli there now. That was where the federal court, that was the federal court building there. And the stockade was just west of it. One of them was for a long time. The fellows walked up in front and back and forth, had guards, you know.
On top of the walls?
On top of the walls. There's a building down the inside of it. I remember one time they had a little riot in there, and they sent for Buck and Booker and those men that carried the guns and straightened things out. So they gathered in there. I don't know. Next thing I know, the fire department come out up there, and they went pumping water in there to them. And that soon stopped the argument. It had everybody wet, and I didn't hear any more of it.
Well, where did they have other stockades, Clint?
The other, one time, is the one along on the north side in the block over there.
On Main?
On Main, yeah. I don't know how long it stayed there, but this one, I think, was longer than any other one. You see, back at that time, long in there, earlier, why, you see, Mr. Wheeler, M. Wheeler, was on the corner where the Red's drugstore is. That's he was the father, he had a store there. He was the father of Mrs. Carlock.
Oh, he had a grocery store?
Grocery store, I think, there. And on the other corner, where Dr. Woolton lived over there.
Had his home there?
Had his home there.
That'd be where the Tivoli is now?
No, that was over where the courthouse, right in front of the Tivoli. And the Tivoli, I think Gardenhire lived there. And Chase lived over on A.D. Chase. Old man A.D. Chase lived over on the south side of William Corner, just where he was someplace long in there. I'll always remember that. See, his families, they went on out to Healdon. Some of the children on down that family. Emmett Chase is still out there. I see him once in a while. Dr. Hardy. No, he didn't marry Chase. I don't know who he married. I can't remember right now. But he married a lady out there partying him, and I can't think of who that was, just offhanded. But so when we came to this country, we hit the Indian Territory. I'm going way backwards here, kind of backing up. But we hit this country down about Terrell, come in by Henrietta, covered wagons, come through Terrell, and on through in by Hewitt, and into that area. And we didn't come on at Ardmore then. My father farmed the cattle out to somebody back up here about where these new lakes going in now to look after them. Had a pretty good bunch there, all 50 head or something like that. And he was dead bent on going to Mill Creek. So we crossed the Washington here and got over there and started around that bomb or Nickel Hill, they called it then. And he got stuck over there. The fella come along, he said, where do you take whatever you raise and ship your cattle? What do you do with them? How do you go? Oh, he said, if I take them to Durant or bring them to Ardmore. And they will forget that. And he says, what do you, to Ardmore? Yeah. He says, well, while you hooked on to me, would you mind just turning that around and headed the wagon back toward Ardmore? And he said, yeah, I'll pull you back across the river. You want to know? He said, just turn me around. I've done been across it. I know I can go back across it. And we come back from there and spent a night over here, and I guess that fellow was coming to picnic then, probably. Nothing said about it, but then we got back in time to be ready for the picnic. So we didn't go to Mill Creek.
What church are you a member of, Clint?
First Methodist.
How long you been a member of it?
Well, I don't know, a long, long time. You know, my father and mother first belonged to the Carter Avenue Methodist Church. See, we lived out on the farm then east of town, and I can remember very well a preacher he'd come out there and in the buggy, and my daddy just loaded him up with roast ears and potatoes and everything in the world, had his old outfit loaded up till he couldn't hardly get back to town with it.
You know, that's enough to make any man take up preaching. And
oh, sure. He just really, and he'd be out every once in a while. I believe that preacher's name was Godfrey. I'm not sure about it. Then later when we moved from out there, here on 4th and G, why, they transferred the membership to the First Methodist. And I've always attended the First Methodist Church, far back as I can remember, because then it was on the corner right across from the Ardmore building there where the filling station is.
Oh, on Broadway
on Broadway
and B Street.
B Street. And the parsonage was right next to it.
Well, didn't they?
That was a wooden structure.
And
later on, they built a brick building there.
Didn't they originally call it the Broadway Methodist
Broadway Methodist Church? And then they moved it from then down where it is now. And thought they'd always have just oodles of room, It was way out, There'd be lots of room, but not so roomy now. That is, the area around it for parking.
Those early years here, like back in Indian Territory days, wasn't the top of the hill there about C Street and West Main, kind of the edge of town?
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right. All out in here where we're sitting in here tonight, that was all out in the farm area in here,
Cow pastures?
Cow pastures, and Frank Frensley owned nearly all this. His wife, he didn't own it, he had it all. In here,
Cow pastures?
Cow pastures, and Frank Frensley owned nearly all this. His wife, he didn't own it, he had it all east, and they cut it up in town lots. Why, then he divided that stuff up, and of course my daddy got in with him on dividing the lots. You could build like this block we're on here, for instance. Frank says, Mr. Dove, you build a house right out in the middle of that, and you buy it in. They cut it up, and there's 2 lots out of this. Says you buy it, and I'll do something with it. You get it 62.5 cents or the appraised value, Your home place, you'd get it at 50 cents of the appraised value. So they went in and they divided up several. There was all of this stuff along in here, you know, and they divided up like you divide corn or pecans or anything when they got it over with and they got it all settled. Why, you take this part and I'll take this, and you take this and I'll take that one, and that's the way they divided up the stuff to get it at the price they could get it at here then.
What did your dad work out after he moved here?
Got it over with and they got it all settled. Why, you take this part and I'll take this, and you take this and I'll take that one, and that's the way they divided up the stuff to get it at the price they could get it at here then.
What did your dad work out after he moved here?
Oh, I'll tell you what, he still retained his farming.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, and he always did, as long as he lived and was able to do anything. He finally had a place just south of Plainview, joined up with, on the east side of Dobby's ranch out there, all alongside it, run clear down to Hickory in there, about all 400 or 500 acres. And he had a man out there on the place, but he'd have to go out there every day as long as he's able to go. And then finally, my brother took it over when he got where he couldn't go. I never had anything to do with that, just my brother and my dad. That was their just outfit out there. And my brother worked in the oil fields, and my daddy run it. That was the whole thing was. But there was havers on it.
In those early days, around downtown down there, did nearly everybody have a cow and some chickens?
Oh, yeah, you could have cow and chickens. They were just common everywhere, and a lot of pigs and hogs. If you could stand them, why, they would be nice, maybe move them sometimes. When we moved here, I'm going to give you one now that's a good one. When we moved here at this place, why, I had a friend over there that was, well, he sold a little liquor. He was made a good neighbor, but he was getting by selling liquor. And he had a beautiful garden back on the other side of the street, back on Wolverton. And he'd throw them corn. He'd buy a load of corn to throw it out here where the pigs were, right here next to my door here. And they was right back here, and I had a chicken house back here of my own. And I don't know, I told him one day, I said, Tom, you're going to have to move that thing. I said, we have some company up there and raise that winterized. We can't live over there. Well, Mr. Dove says, I guess we'll just sell them, get them out of the way. I knew he would because he was not in the right kind of business. He didn't want to create any stirrers, so we said, I'll sell them. And you'd be surprised the customers he had come up there. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise you, maybe it would surprise a lot of people. My wife would sit here and watch them, and some of her very near and dear friends was up there all the time to see Tom, and he'd have it in, you know, ooze it out.
Have that bottle in
his pocket. And you know, I went out there one morning in my in my chicken house. I had that place for my feed in there, and I had a little plot of ground out there, you know, fence for the chickens. I went out there and I broke through my floor in there. And I never saw as much liquor buried on the floor in my life.
Under your chicken house?
Under my chicken house. And I didn't raise any fuss about it. He was hoeing his garden. I hoed my garden on the garden. And I said, Tom, you know what I found over there? I put that feed in there a while ago, and I broke through in there, and there's all kinds of liquor under my floor over there in my chicken house. And I said, if they'd come out and get me, they'd lock me up in the back room down here in this federal jail. And he said, well, I declare, sure enough? I said, yes. And it was gone the next day.
Just disappeared.
Disappeared, and I never did have any more trouble about it. And he moved the hogs out. And he kept a beautiful garden, and my wife got wise to what was going on out. He'd plow the row there, and he buried that liquor on them down those rows out in the garden. And it was just everybody's bragged on his garden, but you'd see some of the county officials ride up out there and call him. He'd walk up and down them rows with his big wheel, you know, and they'd plow up a pint or whatever it was out there, and old boy'd go with my wife sitting back in the store and watching. We just had fun about it. It didn't amount to anything.
The county officials pick him up a bottle off the ground and put in his pocket.
Oh, he did. Yeah, they'd find a clod or something and get in his pocket. My wife, she got so good at it. She says, "Well, there, so-and-so's up today and got a pint or something." Oh, Lord.
What was that bootlegger's name, did you say?
Well, he's around here now. I need to tell his name. He's a good old boy. He's still operating, but he don't bootleg anymore. He got out of that business. Made a pretty good citizen. That is, he was good on them, because he didn't believe in having any rough stuff in the neighborhood. He wanted the neighborhood to be nice. He had a nice little girl and his wife and boy. He believed in everybody walking the straight and narrow around here, but that was his business.
Did he ever get caught?
Oh, yeah, they caught him. I went out with him one morning. I walked to town all the time going to work, and I walked out one morning. He was going along, had his dinner pail with him. I said, "Where are you going, Tom?" And he said, "Oh, Mr. Dove, I carried the dinner with me." Says, "I'm in jail down here, and they let me come home at nights, and I take my dinner with me." Now, that's a fact.
When would that have been? Along the teens?
Yeah, that's when I was working in the lumber yards, you know, at that time.
Well, that was in the 20s.
Yeah. So they never did bother him, because we had all of our local courses all up, and then city policemen and everything, you know.
But I was going to ask you about this matter of the Buck Garrett administration.
Yeah.
I've heard two sides to it. It seemed like you either think he was a saint or he was pretty rotten.
Buck made a good, average law enforcement officer. I'll say it that way. He's pretty rough in handling things sometimes, and then he was do anything for anybody. And if there's something needed taken care of, it took a little roughness to take care of it, he'd do that. And there wasn't anybody, he wasn't afraid of anybody. And they told about him going down on Caddo, and Wobbling Willie had shot somebody down there.
Who?
Wobbling Willie.
Wobbling Willie?
Yeah. Blue. He went in a Kinderbud. So Buck went down there, and he was defying everybody to come down there. And you know where the Martin's drugstore is? Well, there's a basement under there. That's called the Dewdrop Inn.
Oh, the Dewdrop Inn.
Yeah, and you could go out the back door. There wasn't a way you could go in the front. You go out the back door down there, and they run gambling and sold little liquor and everything else in the Dewdrop Inn there. And this fight occurred down there, and Wobbling Willie said to anybody come down, he's going to kill them. And they said, I wasn't down there, but the story was Buck walked right on down the main drag and went right down the middle of the street. Going down just like he didn't walk the sidewalk back there, just went down the middle of the street and told Billy he'd come after him. I don't know whether that was after he's sheriff, probably when he's sheriff or something, told him to come after him. Well, he said he didn't want somebody to, so the story goes, he didn't want somebody to kill him or something. He was just going to let him come in there and get him. He said, I'll go with you. Hey, come on, stroll back up to the courthouse. That was all there was to it, getting that bad man down there. But he had a knack at doing those things.
Well, he had it during the tough days, during the oil.
Oh, yes.
didn't he?
Oh, yeah, out at Healdton and all that in there. He hadn't Bud Blue hit that rough stuff out there, and it had to be rough to handle it.
Did you ever visit out in the oil fields?
I was never out there. Well, I was out there 2 or 3 times during that time in there. I know that C.A. Williams had a grocery store out there, and my brother worked out there for him, and he worked for, well, the 2 stores. One of them, I think, was run by, well, I'll distinguish them because one of them was, I think, hooked up with the Tyler and Simpson. I don't know who was running that one, and the other one was another one, I guess, was Pennington. Zan worked for them, and they opened up a store and carried general merchandise and everything out there.
Where was that?
That was in Work, or Ragtown. And my brother worked for both of them out there at different times. And he said they would get awful rough out there sometimes. And they come along in here, and one of them come in and offered to give me about, I'd worked up about $125 a month in the post office, and a pretty good job, one of the better jobs in town, you know, then. And they come along there, this old boy did, and I don't remember who it was. Well, I know who it was. Zan come in and said he'd give me $200 a month to go out there and keep that man was quitting. If you'll come out there and keep my books and help keep that stuff in, I'll give you $200 a month. And he said there's some side money to be made there, and I said, what do you mean side money? I didn't know what that is going to be, you know, what's that? Well, he said those gaugers read those wells out there from all those various companies, and there's 2 of them bring their stuff in there. The gauger brings it in there, and then all your duties would be to copy that off. 3 copies, one to go to Tulsa and retain one in the office, and one would go to Houston or some other place where the office was, and they give you $75 a month to each one of them. That'd be $150. That'd be $350 a month, and boy, that'd be going to town, you know.
Those days, it's
oh, boy, it'd be big money. So I saw my brother, and I said, what do you think about that? Well, he said, I'll tell you what I think about it, and I wouldn't do it. I said, where do you sleep? I sleep there in the store. He said, it'll keep you awake all times of night, hollering, whooping around there, and you got no place to take your wife out there, and you couldn't take her, and she wouldn't go. And I wouldn't blame her. So we said, just pass that up. You're doing pretty well. So I didn't take the job.
What was your brother's name?
Eric, E-R-I-C.
So you called him something else there, Zan or?
No, I was Zan Williams. My brother was general manager there.
Oh.
And he was a brother to Miss Marjorie down here.
Marjorie Williams?
Marjorie Williams' brother, his older brother.
Zan, was that Z-A-N?
Z-A-M. Zan Williams. And he's got a brother out here in Long Grove now, Jim.
Yeah, I've met Jim.
Well, Jim is his brother, too.
That's a musical clock you got up there. You had that a long time?
Yeah, we've had that for years. It rings on the 15 and half and all the way around.
Beautiful chime.
Yeah, I've got one back here. It's as old as I am in the back room. I wind it up every night.
A grandfather clock?
No, it's not. It's one that sets up on the shelf, though, and Seth Thomas, I believe it is.
Seth Thomas.
I used to see my daddy wind it up when I was a little bitty kid. When we left Tennessee, I can remember that far back.
You wouldn't want to sell that, I don't
know. No. Somebody's always wanting that. All these near kin want it when they can carry it.
Yeah, that's a rare thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Clint, what was you telling there about putting in a tourist home?
Well, we converted the house back of us here into My wife's side, they made a tourist home out of it. In 77, run down the front of us here, so we'd rent rooms out of there, and it was so good, we finally decided to let our front room go once in a while here. We caught somebody that looked real nice. And we had a couple in here one night, and they was asking us all about the Indians, and they was from up in Michigan, somewhere way up there, and they was wanting to know if we could see any of them with the blankets on them. I told them no. I said, we moved there in the Indian Territory days, and they'd done past the blanket stage in this part of the area then, because everybody here then was they were married, native married, so you had to hunt you an Indian almost. And you know, the things they said, well, they'd like to see an Indian. Part Indian or something. So my wife's great niece was sitting over here on back here behind where I am. She said to the man, the lady, one of them sitting here where you've been sitting the other nowhere, well, says you can look at this girl over here and you can see a part Indian. If you want to, you won't have to go any further than right here. And he said, what? So she was about the 16th or something around there. She's, well, there's a picture up there. You see it right up behind me here. That's the picture of the girl that's talking about. You know, she was a good-looking girl. She comes up here to see me every once in a while. Now she lives in Dallas. She and her husband and the kids. She lived with us here for several years. Bill did.
Well, she does look considerable Indian, though.
Oh, yeah, she's got the black hair and the eyes and all, but no.
Well, Clint, you mentioned Highway 77 coming along East Street here. I believe they built 77 across the Arbuckles about the middle 1920s, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They had prisoners from the McAllister all worked up there and had guards, and they worked all the way through that mountain area in there.
Well, before they built 77 across there, how did you get north?
Well, most of the time you had to go round by Sulphur, you know, go out that way. And
well, how did you go up to Byrne? And
no, yeah, you first started up to Byrne, later on they got to going farther down here through by Dixon, but used to go by Byrne and out by the old Bud Young place and on out in that way through there by the Charlie Goddard stuff along through there, you know.
I
that
think
was the road.
That old road up through the mountains there by Goddard didn't go like it does now.
No,
it
went further east and nearer over to Oil Springs and circled around through, you'd go through, it was near Baum there when you crossed the river and then on up there, and you'd go through there about, well, it wouldn't go down to Oil Springs, but near that and on up through there. There's a little place up there, I think we called it Cobb Town or something in there, and you'd come on through that valley on in there by the Low Ranches Lake and that way on up Sulphur then at that time.
Did you ever go over to Oil Springs?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. People would just, they'd camp out there and spend the summer and rub their knees and all for the rheumatism with that oil that was coming out of the ground there, and who sat it after me.
Wasn't a thing in the world but crude oil.
That's all there was to it. Just a little seep of that on top of that water, you know, just enough to make it look oily, and then come up there for that curative qualities of the water, rub it on their knees and joints, go home happy.
Did you ever go down to that old Oil Springs resort that was down on below Hickory Creek?
South?
Yeah.
No, I never was right through that place there.
It may have been closed out by the time you started getting around.
Well, I don't know when that was down in there, but I know about where it was, but I never was down in there to it. They had the same thing out here in the Healdon field, had some of those seeps out there, you know.
Yes, out there at Oil Prairie. You know, they
Yeah.
drilled a well out there in 1905.
That was first the Santa Fe people got that thing in there, and Sykes was working for them.
C.E.
C.E. Sykes, and
Yes,
he later,
yes.
yeah, he later got a loose from that and got into it himself and made some money out of it.
Well, I believe from that well out there in 1905, they got some gas and brought it into Ardmore, didn't they?
But yeah, they went. I don't remember when they did bring the gas to Ardmore, but they got the gas in here. The outfit, everybody was wanting to put gas in, and Jason McCarran was on the board of city commissioners, and I was working for him up there. So this fellow wanted a franchise, and you know these fellows in franchise, they sure do lay around the commissioners, you know, to get them to work it up so they could get in. This old fellow, one of our leading citizens here, Mr. Stone,
S-T-O-N-G.
you know the father of Mrs.
Mabel Ruth Stone.
Yeah, was theirs. Well, anyway, he hung around the store all the time, man. He's right under the hotel. And this old boy stayed at the hotel, very big, nice-looking fellow. And he was courting old man next door there. He is commissioner from over in the 3rd Ward, and McCarran from here. And so he was hanging around there wanting them to vote for him to get a franchise in here. And so he'd come along there that morning. Mr. Stone had been gone for about a week, gone back to Kentucky someplace where they'd come from for some reason. So he'd come up with his blustering away, and Stone was sitting there there was a good place to sit down there, right? And he was sitting there visiting some fellow, maybe talking business, no telling, I don't know. He said, "How do you do, Mr. Stone? Glad to see you back." And he says, "What are you doing now?" And he says, "I'm tending to my own business, what a lot of other fellows should be doing." And I thought that was a good one. He got his backpack in the store, and I thought, well, that's he let him have one. So I've often thought about that. Stone had him one quick.
Not old man Stone, that was Ethel Rocket.
Ethel Rocket's father, that's right.
And Mabel Ruth never married.
No. And Ethel's, where is she now?
She's out at the Memorial Convalescent.
Oh, yeah, out here. I would go out sometimes here.
Yeah, she worked at the Ardmore 42 years.
Oh, yeah.
She did a lot of writing about the people of Ardmore.
Oh, yeah. You know, the Ardmore someplace, she come up here to see me they wanted to come up and take a picture the day before a birthday, and they came up here in a big hurry and wanted to go out here to Bloomfield and take a picture down on the road where they had that sign there. And I said, "I know a thing that'll be a lot better than that." The fellow says, "What?" I said, "Go over here to the old 700 ranch and we'll stand there side of that well if you know to get something that runs way back." And he did. It's in the Ardmore. Some of them, I don't know when it was here.
Been quite a few years back.
Quite a few years back. Because me and Ethel, she wrote the thing up and got the picture, and then she done the writing of it, you know.
Oh. Clint, have they pretty well had a birthday celebration every year?
Practically every year. They probably might have missed some, but I can't hardly think of where they ever missed one. They're nearest to come to having one like they had a long time ago, and I know you can remember that. You know where the old swimming pool was there when they had that one here since the Coliseum's built.
Oh, right.
That come near filling the bill like they used to have. You went through there, you know, and you got all your stuff. Now, that was a good deal like the one then. They didn't borrow you much that day. You just load up down there with pickles and take it home or wherever you wanted to. And that's the way they run them every year.
I believe in 1937, when Ardmore was 50 years old, they had a big deal out at Walker Stadium. I read something in the paper. They had a pageant, had about 1,000 people taking part in it. Had the governor down here to speak.
And I don't remember too much about that. I remember the thing, but I don't know whether, I guess I was there to always go, or did.
You mean you quit going?
No, I still go out and make it over here every time. I get over there during the morning, evening or something. I go in the morning usually because I see more people that I would like to see, and it's been here a long time.
When you were courting Bessie Palmer, what did y'all do? Where did you go?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, that goes back to school days.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, she was going to school up Hargrove, and I was too, and then she got through up there and got a degree from Hargrove, and I'm not sure they were passing them out to the girls. The boys didn't get any in the same class, but couldn't get one. They'd give them an MEL degree. That's Mistress of English Literature.
Oh.
And the old boys, they'd have to stay on till they got an A.B. degree, I believe. And without having to take any examination, why, we'd go on to Vanderbilt, Well, she went from that and went to Georgetown, Texas, and went to school down there. And of course, we was separated there, and that go around for several years there. And then I went off up to Sulphur, like I told you before there, and come back home. And we didn't go together for quite a while, and we got to going together again. That rocked on for a good long while because, see, she was 26 years old when she married, and I was 29. We wasn't kids then. I mean, we got on up in years before we married.
When did she pass away?
In March 31st, 1967, 2 years ago.
2 years ago last month.
Last month. Of course, about the time we married back there, she was associate grand conductor of the Eastern Star of the state of Oklahoma. And I passed the Dove on, don't you see? We married there, and it's Bessie Palmer. Everybody knew her as Bessie Palmer. And we'd go to those grand chapter meetings and call them Miss Bessie and Bessie Palmer, and they'd hold them the days then.
Oh, that's a picture of her.
That's a picture of her, along about the days then. And of course, I'd sit back there, and they didn't know who I was, and big meeting, and they'd say, she's awful young for that job, and I knew they'd do all that jabbering around there, and they didn't think how old she was because, gee, that was after we'd married,
Yeah, this picture's Bessie Palmer Dove, Grand Matron, 1912.
1912.
You'd been married 3 years then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And our little girl was born in 1919. See, we'd been married 10 years before the girl was born.
Y'all just didn't rush into things.
No, we didn't. We took things like we thought we could get along with it, I see these kids get married now, and I wonder sometimes, I'd saved up a little pot there. I thought we'd need some money, and I'd saved up enough to build onto the house and do all that. Now they just get married and move in with mama or do something, I don't know why.
Yeah, somehow they make it.
They make it, though. They get by.
Well, it looks like we just about run out of tape, Clint. I sure appreciate getting to interview you.
Why, yeah, I'm glad you come by.
You have to get some more of this history, and You think things over and remember some more things, well, we might get together again.
Get together again. We could start somewhere and follow some of this and know about where we quit and begin again.
Yeah, we need to get down all of it we can and get this history written out.
It's well, it'll be real interesting to people coming on later on. Now, you take my family. There's no one in my family living at all. See, my brother's dead and sister and Tommy was the last of my relatives. So on my immediate side of my family, I'm the last of the Mohicans.
I meant to ask you a while ago and slipped my mind.
On later on. Now, you take my family. There's no one in my family living at all. See, my brother's dead and sister and Tommy was the last of my relatives. So on my immediate side of my family, I'm the last of the Mohicans.
I meant to ask you a while ago and slipped my mind. You're a Mason, aren't you?
Yes.
How far did you go?
Well, I've been both ways, the York Rite and the Scottish Rite, both ways.
So
I went to York Rite first and took the shrine from there and then back. I'm a life member of everything in the various things except the Blue Lodge and the Eastern Star.
Did you take your 32nd, your consistory work over McAllister?
Over McAllister in 1908. 1908.
Well, when did you first join the lodge?
In 1906.
And while you were at it, you just went on through. And
after I was in there, I took all my degrees in masonry before I got married, just took the whole works every way. I had plenty of time, and we had the hours are shortened down in the post office. I had lots of time on my hands.
That's where you didn't have to work 12 hours a
day. Got it down to 8 hours a day. So then I took all my work in masonry before that. So my wife, she led me around. She was conductress. We hadn't married. She was conductress when I went into the Eastern Star. Some of them said she led you into that, didn't she? I said, well, she's that girl. I will lead you into anything.
Well, she led you into about, what, 58 years of marriage?
That's right. That's right, about 58 years.
Well, that's wonderful, Clint.
Yes, when you look back over those years, why, we had a pleasant life together. She took an active interest in a lot of things. She was one time chairman of the Carter County Election Board and served there for a good long while until her dad decided to run for office, and they said, oh, go on, keep it, Ms. Dove. She said, no, I don't think that'd be right, and she wouldn't do it, He got beat.
And she was out of job,
too. She was out of job, too.
Well, thanks a lot, Clint, and we'll give it another try.
Okay.